Okay. Hello, my name is Patricia.
I'm Jalen.
I'm Olivia. And I'm Miriam.
Okay, so this week's discussion post is asking, what is Kendall's main argument? In other words, what is the primary idea that Kendall wants her readers to leave her essay with? Refer to specific passages in your response. So for my answer for that one, I said that Kendall's main argument was that how the term Asian American is like evolving over time. And she even said how it like raised questions of who is included in the term Asian American and like what it stands for or if it's even still relevant.
I also put something similar to that. And adding on to what you said, like who is included and what's its meaning. It's like sometimes a lot of different ethnic groups, like Asian ethnic groups, like felt discriminated because they're like smaller and unknown. Like everyone knows like Chinese and Korean and Japanese, but all like the other countries like Vietnam or like Bangladesh or like Cambodian or Laos, like they're unknown, so they kind of feel like left out, which kind of question like who is included into the term Asian American.
I just want to add on that, like, I don't know if like it's happened for you guys, but personally, like, I don't really care the type of like, Asian one. If you're Asian, then you're Asian. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Well, except for um, like Bangladesh or like something like that, I would have been like, oh, like you're Middle Eastern or something. But I wouldn't be like, oh, you're Cambodian. You're not Asian. Get the heck out of here. I'm Filipino. Like, I'm known. Who knows a Cambodian? It's just kind of
Mm-hmm.
stupid.
She also said the term Asian American expresses an idea, and that idea is wait, hold on. And the idea is that as Asian Americans, we have to work together to fight for social justice and equality, not only for ourselves but for all of the people around us. So she kind of just wanted us like to all like um, be together and stand together too.
I think that's gonna be hard because uh, she was talking about in the essay that like during the Japanese Exclusion Act, the Chinese Exclusion Act, the Japanese didn't do anything to help them out. And same thing when um, World War II happened, the Pearl Harbor, and the Japanese went to camps and all that. The Chinese like, didn't do anything, and they were like still scared that they were going to be targeted just because they're Asian, so they had to wear pins. Like they want to be far away from like, the Japanese so that they can
It's kind of sad that like they tried to distance themselves and they even put like labels so they knew like other people knew what ethnicity they were.
Mhm.
Yeah, like the other Asian groups, like you said that they didn't even support those Japanese for, being incarcerated because like they were afraid, I guess. But I think that like what Olivia said that they should be together. They should have done that instead of like running away from the consequences and leaving those other people behind. Like they were all facing the same struggles. It was just that it was all like in different times and different events. Yeah.
I want to add on, like, just from seeing it from their point, there were like Asian Americans were already hated. So, and then to help the Japanese or whoever was being targeted, it put a target on their own back. Like, say, a wife and husband and a kid, right? Say the wife and husband want to support the cause and like help out, but they also have to think about if like I put myself out there into the cause, I'm gonna be a target. And if I'm a target, that means my family is a target and my kid is a target. And a parent's like, worst nightmare was for the family or the kid to get hurt. So I feel like they just want to like protect their family.
Yeah, I also agree. And I feel like Kendall, she put an example in that like kind of raised awareness to Asians that it's like more important now than ever to kind of bring unity. And she talked about how after Vincent Chin's incident, um, there was Zia who helped organize a committee in response to his killing. And it quoted that the fact that they could come together and multiply their presence in the American democracy was huge. So I feel like that was very important, and it kind of like made everyone aware that it's like we need to make change and we can't just like kind of separate ourselves when we should come together.
Yeah, like everybody kind of needs to be involved. Like everybody has to contribute and everything.
I hate that for the reason to ban them all together was like
Mm-hmm.
stereotypical because Vincent Chin the they were all kind of auto people. They were all mad that Japanese automobile were like taking over, and they thought they saw Vincent Chin and said, "Oh, he's Asian. He's most likely Japanese, so let's attack him." So it's like we had to come together on on something as stupid as that, just on stereotypical lookalikes.
Yeah, and it's like a big event had to happen, like a death of someone had to happen before we were to come together.
Yeah, and his death also, like you said, like brought the Asian community, and then according to the essay, it kind of like introduced Asian Americans to white Americans. You know, they were like, "Oh, where did all these people came from?" You know, like it was just all that Asian American community banded together after Vincent's death, and then like it kind of shocked, I guess, the rest of America. Like they didn't know that they were there. So.
Yeah, it brought like a sense of unity not only between the Asian American community, but also with white people and then African American people too, because they all fought for Asian American people.
I want to add on that how did the white people, or I guess America, not see Asian Americans? Was it because they had their own communities like Chinatown and all that, so they were just away from the white people? But I just found it weird that they were like, "Oh, who are these people?"
Hmm.
I'm trying to oh, never voice.
I feel like they like knew about them, but they kind of just chose not to interact with them at all. Yeah, I
Mm-hmm.
don't know.
Or maybe it could be like the fact that they weren't used to having like this Asian American voice. So like when they finally did, it was like a big surprise to them.
Yeah, they even like were surprised that they were able to speak English.
Really?
Yeah, that's what it said in the article.
Okay. Yeah. I actually wanna add, well, actually introduce like this person, Sarah Song. I don't know if I'm saying the person's name right, but in the article it mentioned that a this person was a Cambodian refugee, and then he felt like he didn't fit in into the term Asian American. So it was like the term Asian American was stereotyping or like combining all these different like ethnic groups in one label, and then like not everyone feels a part of it, including him. So there's like a lot of other people or other ethnic groups out there that didn't feel the same way. I mean, in the article, they also said, if I can find it, and I quote this as a passage: if you were to ask most people who are Asian American, describe your race or ethnicity, they would say, I am Japanese American, I'm Thai, Cambodian, Filipino. Very few of us would start out by saying I'm Asian American. Daryl Maida, a professor of Asian American Studies at the University of Colorado. So that like kind of tells us that not everybody considers themselves as Asian Americans. So it's still, that term is kind of like questionable.
Mm-hmm. I think that just shows how important it is that we need to recognize each ethnicity on its own rather than like under the term Asian. Like, yes, we all fall under the Asian category, but there's like so many different ethnic groups.
Add on, I feel like it's just more convenient. It's like, say you're having a conversation, and someone asks, "Oh, like, what ethnicity are you?" And you say, "I'm Asian American." There's so many Asian Americans. Like, which one specifically are you? So I think they just go straight to the point. I'm Filipino and Chinese.
That's true, but I feel like also, or like this happens to me, like when people ask me, or like when ask me what my ethnicity is, they'll guess like Chinese, Korean, or Japanese. They'll never fall like anything after that. It's only like the three main like Eastern Asian countries. But besides that, they don't really know that much.
Mhm. Yeah, it's almost kind of like degrading to say like Asian American because like say like you're Filipino or something and you someone calls yourself Asian American, like that's like your whole culture kind of just being like overlooked and everything. So yeah, I just think it's like kind of degrading for some people.
You guys ready for the second question? You guys have anything else to say?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Second question is asking, Kang challenges some of Candle's view and undermines the legitimacy or necessity of an Asian American community. What is Kang's main argument? How does he prove or support his main argument? Refer to specific passages in your response. Who wants to start that one?
Well, he started off as saying that Asian American is a mostly meaningless term. And he said, nobody grows up speaking Asian American, nobody sits down to Asian American food, and nobody goes on pilgrimages back to their motherland of Asia America. So he kind of just thought the term was completely meaningless.
Yeah. And then he says that like discrimination or being an immigrant is really like what ties all those people together, other than like their languages and stuff like that.
Yeah, like, I see his point because like, the four of us, we're all Asian Americans. So there might be little stuff that binds all of us together. Like, I don't know, I'm gonna say boba. We're all Asian, like boba. But other than that, we don't have actual similarities with each other.
Yeah, I see that point.
Yeah, and adding on, like our similarities are kind of like negative stuff. Like we're bound together by stereotypes, and like our parents had, let's say, an experience of discrimination, prejudice, and suffering. So those are like the only things that are similar to us, which we don't really want to kind of like be represented as that. And in the previous article that we read, it said that parents try to cover their children from what they had to go through, but at the same time, they want to prepare them for what they have to face. So it's like saying that as Asian Americans, like it's kind of meaningless because if our parents are trying to like not warn us about what's going on, then it's like there's no point in it.
I want to add on to what Miriam said some time ago, saying that it's only like the negative things that bind us together. It was in King's article that universities are like stereotypical to Asians. And all Asians, we have so many of you that we're not going to accept you.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and like why couldn't we be recognized for everything that we did good in the past? Like the Japanese made a step up in like manufacturing and like engineering and everything. Why couldn't we be like recognized for that or anything? It's because, yeah.
I think to answer your question, I think it's white people always want to be on top. They want to see like there's like superior to everyone. So to any other race or anyone other than white that show that they're doing good, it's like no, we can't have that happen. We're at the top. We need to know what there is.
Right.
And I think that's when like they bring into the government blaming us. Oh, they like we let them into our countries, but then they only look at the bad stuff we do, and then they're just gonna like brainwash the citizens, saying that oh, like Asian Americans only do bad, but they don't see what good we actually do.
Should we move on to the third question? Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Number 3 is asking, to what extent do you agree with Candle and or with King? I'll start with this one. So for me, I said that after reading both of their works, I I agree with Kendall's argument more that just because I believe that the term Asian American is still important and still has like meaning, and it's just like evolved to this day. Like Kendall said that like some ethnic groups don't consider themselves under Asian Americans or as part of that group, and I personally like don't include myself in that. Like I know I'm Asian American or I'm Asian, but like I don't call myself Asian. I call myself like Filipino. So whenever somebody asks me like, "Oh, are you Asian?" I'm like, "No, I'm Filipino." So,
Mhm.
but I think that like in the world of justice, social justice, I think that having a term or label for Asians is important because the world would know that who's talking or who's like trying to be heard, and like they would know who's trying to like step up or speak up.
I also agree that the term is important, but I feel like they should kind of like make change to the term. Like they should reinforce it more because like as of now, it's like kind of like inclusive to only like the main Asian groups. So I feel like they should like reinforce it to have like more people.
Yeah, I agree to a certain extent with King because he says Asian American is meaningless, but I'd say it kind of is meaningless because what's it called? Because we like saying like what we actually are, like Filipino, Japanese, Chinese, and the other half, it's not meaningless because that's what our ancestors had to go through and everything. Like they had to be discriminated and stuff, and people always called them Asian American for like working on the railroad and everything like hard working stuff that they had to do.
I agree with like same thing with you like, to an extent on Kings because like we are all different, like we are our own person, and there's only like little similarities that bring us together. But overall, I support Kendall's because not just one ethnic group, but one specific Asian group can fight the social injustice. I mean, we all Asians who, or whatever, like, who live on that part of the world that we need to band together and fight this cause.
I also agree to what Olivia said about King's argument, but I feel like the term is kind of meaningless, especially since we don't really know our history. So it's like if people ask us like what type of Asian we are, we say what we are, but like we don't really know much about our background. And in King's article, he also said if you don't ask them about their lives, you won't find out. So it's like we can't really share anything, or we can't really say that, oh, we're Asian, if we kind of don't really know much about our history. So I feel like that's kind of where the term is kind of meaningless.
Yeah, that kind of makes sense. Yeah.
All right, so since we finished all the other questions, I want to ask my own question. Which article or essay do you guys prefer out of both Kendall's and King's?
Out of the two, I prefer Candles more, just because she like said her main argument right away. So like throughout her essay, you know what she was talking about. Whereas with Kang, it was kind of like you had to guess it, kind of, because he mentioned like fraternity brothers and like laws, right? Or like trials or something like that. So it's kind of like confusing to follow along.
I also agree. I feel like Kendall's was definitely more straightforward. And she was just like, okay, this is like what I think about the term Asian American, and like this is what we need to do about it. And while Kang's article, he like he or she like he like kind of like had the story, like the court case and all this stuff, but it was like he talked about the ending of it first, and then he like introduced like why it happened and what was going on. So that kind of made me a little confused on his point.
I agree with that too. Like, King's was pretty like it was it was difficult to read, difficult to understand mostly.
Yeah.
And then Kendall, like Patricia said, he said what the prompt was like, and you were reading throughout the article, you knew what he was talking about. So I like that better.
Mm-hmm.
I agree with all of you. Kendall's was first it was short, which I was like thankful for, and
Yeah.
it was like straight to the point. And then Kang, when I saw like hers, it was like 18 pages, and I was like, whoa. Plus, oh, there's pictures. That's cool. So I got happy with the pictures. And then I read like the first 5 pages, and there was nothing about the topic. So I was like, am I reading the right article? And
Mm-hmm.
then there was like a paragraph or a few paragraphs talking about the topic. That was it. And then it just went on the court cases. And I don't know if like we were supposed to like mentally understand or like relate it to the topic or something like that, but I didn't because it was too hard.
Yeah, it was just hard. But at least we learned something.
Does
Okay.
anyone else have anything to say?
No. I think we're good.
Yeah.
But I think that's good, right?
Yeah.